Hi, tucking you in again and reading you some Redwall. We're on chapter 18. I believe that's when Matthias breaks into the St. Ninian's church to retrieve the tapestry, but Clooney has already left. But maybe I'll try to read more tonight. I was sick last time, so my throat was kind of having a rough time with it. Let's see. I've lost my. Oh, there we are. You know what? I think. Sorry, I'm just gonna look under you real quick because I had a Pokemon card. I'll just use that. I got this randomly at the laundromat. I had an extra $1, so I was like, just kind of curious to see what kind of card I'd get. I got Doug Trio. And they seem to have like really nice hair. But yeah. Uh-oh. I've officially lost my place. Okay. Sorry. Let me tuck you back in. There we go. And Oliver's sitting next to you. Huh, buddy? Still. Okay, anyway. Clooney massed his forces in the roadside ditch opposite Redwall Abbey. He stood well back in the meadow behind the ditch, surrounded by his captains. Here, where he was out of range, he could direct the entire operation. But at the moment, he was not having things all his own way. For a start, he did not have many archers. Rats are notoriously bad at bow making and the fetching of arrows. From the ramparts of Redwall, the field and harvest mice sent down volley after volley of tiny arrows, which, while they had no great killing power, were causing much wounding and discomfort in the ranks of Clooney's horde. Standing beneath his banner, which was rammed into the earth, Clooney cracked his tail. Redtooth, Darkclaw, tell the sling throwers to stand ready. When I give the signal, I want to see a good heavy barrage of stones hitting the top of the parapet. That'll make them keep their heads down. Frogblood, Scumnose, you two will organize the gangs with the scaling ladders and grappling hooks. See they all get up on top of that wall, no blunders. The rat captains marched off to the ditch to make ready. Clooney held his tail up to give the signal. On top of the wall, the mouse archers kept their relentless hail of arrows into the ditch. Constance strode up and down, holding a heavy cudgel in her paws as she urged them on. That's the stuff to give 'em, mice. Keep those bows twanging. Knowing the supply of arrows was not endless, the badger looked to the heaps of rubble and stone along the parapet edges. Brother Rufus Formal, be ready to shift that lot overboard at a moment's notice. Smack, clank, bang, thud. A hail of sharp stones and pebbles whizzed upwards, rattling against the masonry as Clooney waved his tail in the meadow below. Taken unawares, several mice were felled and a mole lay stunned. Get your heads down, everyone. Lie flat, Constance shouted. Oliver's cleaning himself. The defenders instantly obeyed as the showers of missiles increased. Running along the ramparts, bent double, and the abbot cried out, Stretchers, bearers, over here, help me to get the casualties down into the cloisters. Winifred the otter lay alongside Constance and whispered to her, Hear that scraping? Clooney's lot are putting something against the walls. It's my guess they'll be trying to climb up while we've got to lie low." Even as Winifred spoke, two grappling hooks with climbing ropes attached came clanking over the parapet and lodged into the joints. "Stay low, my friends," whispered Constance. "Give them a bit of time to get off the ground. I want plenty of rats to be high up before we make a move. Pass the word along." Below in the meadow, Redtooth waved his cutlass and laughed wildly. "Your plan is working out, Chief. Look, there's old Fangburn and his gang nearly at the top of the wall." Clooney lifted his visor to get a better view. It was too late to call out against what he saw happen next. A veritable avalanche of earth and rocks cascaded over the parapet. It smashed straight on to the main ladder. Rats screamed aloud and grasped at mid-air as they were swept from the ladder to the road below. The ladder fell sideways, cannoning into another one that had been set up beside it. As both ladders fell, there were scenes of mass chaos. Badly wounded and shocked, the survivors on the roadway tried to crawl back to the safety of the ditch, only to be buried beneath rubble, which thundered down on them. Many lay trapped beneath the heavy ladders that had fallen. The air resounded with screams and moans. Clooney ranted and swore. Leaving his standard, he rushed across the meadow. Taking the ditch in a single leap, he darted across the road. Grasping a hanging rope, he began hauling himself up. Claw over claw, as the solitary beaver gnawed through the last strands, the rope parted. Clooney fell from a far height and sprawled on the dusty road in an undignified heap. Clooney flung himself into the ditch. Regrouping the sling throwers and a few archers, he ordered them to await his command. At the top of the walls, the last climbing rope had been severed. A hearty cheer rent the air as the Redwall defenders broke cover to survey their handiwork. "Fire!" Clooney roared. Stones and arrows spread upward with devastating effect. Several mice and woodlanders cried out and fell. The results heartened Clooney. All was not lost. He began devising a new plan. In Mossflower Wood, Rhaegar was struggling with the rope that bound him to the oak tree. He could hear far-off sounds which meant only one thing. His chief was attacking the abbey. Straining his neck downwards at an uncomfortable angle, Rhaegar was able to get his teeth into the tough climbing rope. If he could manage to free himself, he might be able to sneak back and join the horde. He could mingle with them and deny that he had ever been missing. Clooney might also take a lenient view of his desertion if he could distinguish himself during the battle. The rope tasted foul. Rhaegar could tell by its scent that it had once belonged to Shadow. He'd never liked that surly, poker-faced rodent. Rhaegar congratulated himself as his teeth bit through another strand. "Ha, take that rope, and that. No rope can keep Rhaegar prisoner for long. He he he. Poor old Shadow, if only you could see your lovely rope now." Rhaegar straightened up for a moment to ease his neck. Oh, yeah. Fix it a little bit. There you go. Okay then. The laughter died on his lips. A horrified gurgle bubbled from his throat. Icy claws of terror gripped his chest. Swaying hypnotically a foot from his face was the biggest, strongest, most evil-looking adder that had ever been born. The rat was completely petrified. The breath seemed to freeze in his lungs. The sinister, blunt head moved in a lazy rhythm, its forked tongue flickering endlessly in and out. The round, bead-like jet eyes never leaving his for an instant. Its voice was like dry leaves rustling in the autumn breeze. Osmodeus, Osmodeus," it hissed. "So kind of you to untie yourself, rat. Come with me. I will show you eternity." Osmodeus, Osmodeus. It struck with lightning speed. All that Rhaegar felt was a sudden sharp sting to the side of his neck. His limbs became flaccid, his eyesight shrouded by a dark mist. The last words Rhaegar ever heard on this earth were uttered in the adder's sibilant hiss. Asmodeus, Asmodeus. Clooney scratched the floor of the ditch with his claw. It was all there, the design for his next move. He would attack the abbey secretly from the mossflower side. It would be a surprise maneuver. A hand-picked squad led by him would carry out the mission, dressed in Clooney's war helmet and armor. Redtooth would stay back in the meadow. His disguise would be sufficient to fool the defenders from the distance of the high walls. The rats in the ditch were ordered to continue pressing home the attack until Clooney and his party scaled the walls from behind and fought their way across the grounds to open the abbey gates. After issuing orders to his remaining captains, Clooney, accompanied by a score of assorted rats, weasels, stoats, and ferrets, crept off along the course of the ditch. They carried with them the long plank from St. Ninian's Lich Gate fence. Silently they traveled in a northerly direction until they were out of sight of the walls. Climbing out of the ditch, they crossed the road into Mossflower Wood. Clooney sat on a fallen tree trunk and told his squad what was required of them. "I'll wait here with the plank carriers. The rest of you split up and search the area for any big, high trees growing near the abbey walls. Make sure that the tree you pick is higher than the wall itself and not too difficult to climb. Got that? Right, get going." Clooney watched them strike off into the undergrowth. His previous good mood had deserted him. He was working himself into a foul temper over the day's performance by his mighty conquering horde. Shown up by the simple tactics of woodland creatures and mice, he snorted and dug his powerful claws into the rotten tree trunk, sending beetles and woodlice scurrying as he tore out a chunk of the spongy timber. Oh, he had frightened them at first. As commander, he knew the power of fright, but once they had gained the upper hand in the initial skirmish, the mice lost their fear and became bolder. That was when the battle had started to go against him. Granted, he had scored one or two small victories, but they were nothing to brag about. He couldn't use them as an example to put fresh heart in his troops. Clooney's only hope was that the mice would become overconfident and eventually make a mistake. It was the old waiting game. Just let them make one slip. That was all he needed. Meanwhile, he had a greater obstacle to overcome than the mice, the walls. It was those same accursed walls that were ruining all his plans. Clooney tore viciously at the rotting log until great chunks of it flew through the air. If the scheme worked, he wouldn't have to worry about walls anymore. He'd be inside those walls like a fox among day-old chickens. Clooney sniffed the air. His senses told him the searchers were returning. Cheese Thief and a ferret named Kilconey came crouching out of the underbrush. They were trembling and twitching. Both looked as if they had been badly scarred. It was some time before Clooney could get any sense out of them. Cheese Thief broke haltingly, glancing back fearfully over his shoulder. We got a bit lost, Chief." "Lost? Where?" Clooney snarled. Kilconey pointed a shaky claw. "Over that way, Your Honor. And didn't we find a great strapping oak?" "Was it close to the wall?" Cheese Thief shook his head. "No, Chief, it was further out into the woods. Look what I found wrapped around the trunk." He held out the chewed and broken climbing rope. Clooney snatched it. "This looks like Shadow's climbing rope." "He's dead. What are you fools trying to tell me?" Kilconey whispered pitifully. "It's Rhaegar, Your Honor." Clooney seized the unlucky pair and shook them soundly. "Have you both gone raving mad? Do you mean to tell me you're frightened of that fool Rhaegar?" Cheese Thief fell to his knees sobbing. "But you didn't see him, Chief. He was just lying there." His face was all swollen and his tongue was sticking out. It had gone purple. Ugh, he was all sorts of bloated like. It was horrible. Kilconey bobbed his head vigorously in agreement. Aye, so 'twas. Didn't we see him with our very own eyes, sir? Poor old Rhaegar and him going backwards all the time. Going backwards, echoed Clooney. Indeed he was, said the ferret, and your man here says to me, says he, there's something pulling Rhaegar along. Sure, we couldn't see what it was for all the bushes, so we pulled them to one side between us, and what did we see? Well, what did you see? Barked Clooney irritably. Kilconey stopped and shuddered. He spoke incredulously, as if he were unable to believe himself. Oh! Sorry, I freaked out over I thought it was a spider. But I think it was just the shadow. Maybe the shadow of like my hair or something. Okay. Well, what did you see? Barked Clooney irritably. Yeah, I think it was just my hair. Sorry, I don't like spiders very much. I'm slowly getting used to them, but obviously there are plenty I still get bothered by. Let's see. Okay, well, what did you see? Barked Clooney irritably. Kilconey stopped and shuddered. He spoke incredulously, as if he were unable to believe himself. We saw the biggest snake you ever clapped eyes on, the father of all serpents. He had poor Rhaegar's body by the feet and was dragging it along backwards. Clooney's one eye widened. What did the serpent do when it saw you? It let go of Rhaegar and looked at us, squeaked Cheese Thief. The serpent stared at us. It kept on saying, Asmodeus, Asmodeus. Clooney scratched his head with a sharp, dirty claw. Asmodeus, what's that supposed to mean? Do ye not know? 'Tis the dreaded name of the devil himself, sir, wailed the ferret. I know because me old mother told me so, and she was always said never to look a serpent in the eye. So I says to me mate here, Cheese Thief, says I, don't look, run for your life, and that's exactly what we did, sir. Oh, you'll never know how horrible it was. I'd rather be tied in a blazing barn than go back there, so I would. The great scaly body of the quiet fool, said Clooney. I think I hear the others coming back. Now straighten yourselves up and not a word to anyone about the serpent thing, or you'll feel my serpent cross your backs. Clooney's long tail waved menacingly under their noses. They took his point. A weasel called Scrag came running up. He reported smartly with great efficiency. High tree near the Abbey wall, chief. Elm, I think, much higher than the wall. Lots of branches jutting out, just the job for climbing. How far to this tree? Clooney asked. About 10 minutes' march to the east, Scrag replied. When the rest of the party arrived back, Clooney had them form up in a single file. They marched eastwards at a smart pace. The high tree did prove to be an elm, an ancient giant covered in gnarled bumps and handy branches. Clooney sized it up, exactly what he wanted, the perfect distance from the wall. He turned to his commando squad. Listen, we're going to climb this tree. When we get up high enough, I'll find a strong branch that we can bridge to the wall with a plank. If we go carefully, the mice won't suspect a thing. Before they can gather their wits about them, we'll be inside Redwall. Okay, so we're at chapter 19. Oh, my leg. Okay. It was difficult to tell who was more surprised, Matthias and his party or the rat sentries. There was a second's pause, then they scattered. One or two of the rats were a bit slow off the mark, but not as slow as Colin Vol and his mother, who were roughly grabbed by the faster sentries. Matthias dodged, wriggled, and ran free, tripping a rat who was about to seize Mr. Vole. The young mouse ran, pushing the vole in front of him and calling out, "Run, keep going, Mr. Vole. Try to make it to the woods and hide." The vole faltered, "But my wife, Colin, the rats have got them." Matthias pushed him roughly forward. "They'll get you too if you don't hurry. Move yourself, Vole. You'll be no good to your family as a prisoner again." Taking Matthias's advice, Abram Vole ran as fast as his legs would carry him. Matthias turned and picked up a heavy branch. He faced the oncoming rats. "Only a dozen of you," he taunted. "Let's see what you rats are made of. First come, first serve." Matthias swung the branch. It whooshed through the air, causing the rats to stop in their tracks. As he advanced on them, flailing the branch, he shouted at the top of his voice, "Basil, Basil, Staghair, where are you?" The rats tried to circle Matthias. One got too near. "Oh yeah, Basil, I love Basil. I remember him now. Silly hair, silly rat. Jokes are for kids." Anyway, a hefty blow from the improvised staff sent him crashing to the ground. "Oh, well hit, sir, jolly well hit." It was the hare. He came bounding up, for all the world as if he were on a Sunday school picnic, grinning from ear to ear. Of course he was, because he's the best. Colin and Mrs. Vole came panting in his wake. Matthias gasped with relief. "Basil, where in heaven's name did you get to?" The skillful creature dodged a rat, spun round, and landed a fierce double-footed kick to its stomach. The rat bawled over, completely winded, all the fight knocked out of its body. Basil chuckled. "Sorry about that, Matthias, my old lad. When these chaps gave up chasing me, I scooted back to my den. Spring cleaning, you know, a bit late, but I'm only a bachelor in single quarters. What?" Matthias was flabbergasted. Here he was fighting off a dozen rats, trying to rescue the Vole family while Basil was dusting out his den. The young mouse could scarcely hold his temper. "Oh, how nice of you, Mr. Hare. So glad you could join us," he said sarcastically as they beat off the rats and hurried the voles along. "I don't suppose you put the kettle on for tea?" Basil bowed to Mrs. Vole and offered her his paw. "Allow me, ma'am. Why, yes, as a matter of fact, I did. Nothing like a fresh pot of mint tea after some good, healthy exercise. What? Matthias struck a rat square in the face with the butt of his branch. The hare was obviously insane. Mint tea, indeed. "Why, I don't suppose you think I'm going to sit in your den drinking afternoon tea all afternoon," he yelled. Basil had a hammerlock on a rat. He swung him and knocked two more flat on the ground. He winked at Matthias. "I certainly hope not, old bean. You see, it'd be perishing awkward." Perishing? It's the way he says it. It's kind of hard to pronounce, but let's try. "You see, it'd be perishing awkward, as if I've only got 4-piece tea set, and if I'm not mistaken, the small gent who took off for the woods like a scalded duck is obviously the husband of this delightful Lady Vole, so I'll have to invite him too, won't I?" Matthias tripped a rat with the branch. He was learning to take Basil in his stride. "Why, of course you will, Mr. Hare. What a bore you must think me. I'll probably sit around on the common here and teach the rats to make daisy chains." Basil dodged around a rat and laughed approvingly. "No need to get uppity, young feller. I thought I'd best shelter the voles and see 'em safe to the Abbey later. Obviously you need to get back to Redwall post-haste. A family of voles would only slow you up." Matthias grinned ruefully. "I apologize, sir. I accept your offer of help gratefully. I didn't mean to be rude." "Yeah, you better not be, because Basil's great. Basil's great. I didn't even say his name right. Basil? Yeah. Basil or Basil? I feel like it's Basil, just because he has that, he has that very proper tone by the sound of it. I'm not giving him I'm not doing justice here to his voice, but I didn't want to do voices for this just because I feel like there's a lot of loud, a lot of yelling when it comes to Clooney. So I don't want to be yelling on an ASMR video. But anyway, let's see. We'll just go with Basil because I've been saying Basil, haven't I? But you know what, we'll say Basil. But yeah, Matthias better be nice to him because he didn't even have to fight. But anyway, by now they were at the edge of the common land. The rats had fallen back momentarily. Basil shook paws with Matthias. Good mouse, right. Cut along, young'un. I'll see you when I deliver my charges back to the Abbey. Alone and unencumbered, Matthias struck off into the woods. Traveling doggedly on wearied legs, he realized that his entry to Redwall would have to be from the Mossflower side, as the main gate would probably be under attack. Could the defenders hold out? Was Constance organizing the retaliation correctly without him? Had the sentries stayed alert? Was Cornflower safe? Questions raced through Matthias's brain as he fought his way through the undergrowth. Taking a check on his bearings, he began to worry a little. The Abbey wall shouldn't be in sight over towards the northwest. Perhaps he hadn't fully realized the sprawling size of the woodlands. Yes, that was it. Maybe if he kept on trekking, the walls would soon come into view. From somewhere ahead, Matthias could hear the trickle and gurgle of a stream. He remembered that it had been some time since he had eaten and drank. Changing direction, he followed the water sounds until he came to the banks of the stream. Lying face down on a low outcrop of red sandstone, Matthias drank his fill of the cool, sweet stream water. Further down the bank, he followed some young dandelions. Gathering a bunch of tender leaves and buds, he made his way back to the sun-warmed sandstone and stretched out on his back, nibbling dandelions and gazing up at the cloudless blue June sky through the treetops. What an action-packed day it had been. Matthias was glad of the brief respite after all the excitement, but he told himself that he could not afford to stay long. He must press on to Redwall. He heaved a great sigh. The life of a warrior was very tiring. Closing his eyes momentarily, he thought of Martin the warrior. Did he ever feel tired? He must have. Defending the Abbey with his large, heavy sword, wearing all that armor. Whatever happened to the sword? It had to be somewhere. Legendary weapons didn't rust and wear away to nothing. Otherwise, they'd never get to be legends. A dragonfly hovered directly above the young mouse, gently stirring his whiskers. What was this strange creature doing in his territory? He glided a little closer. It was quite safe. The oddly garbed animal posed no threat to his authority as bailiff of this stretch of water. He was fast asleep, snoring like a squirrel in midwinter, oblivious to all about him. It was late afternoon. There had been one or two minor setbacks, but Clooney and his squad had finally made it up into the elm tree. Some of the rats were really hopeless climbers in Clooney's estimation. There had been quite a bit of jostling and slipping, and as for that idiot cheese thief, imagine waiting until you were 6 yards above ground to find out that you were afraid and had no head for heights. Clooney thought angrily that if there hadn't been such an urgent need for silence, he'd have given him what for. The warlord began to wish that he had brought along more ferrets and weasels. They possessed good natural climbing ability, and that weasel, what was his name, Scrag, he'd been an enormous help, boosting and encouraging the others, even organizing the lifting of the plank. Clooney made a mental note for future reference. Officer material, that one. Despite all efforts, however, they were still below the edge of the parapet. Higher up, the elm branches became thin and whippy, not strong enough to support the plank's height, or the plank's weight. Clooney took stock of the situation. This was really as far as he could go while still retaining some kind of safety factor on their hazardous assignment. He decided to call a halt. Right, take a breather. Find somewhere that you won't fall from. In an hour or two, it'll be evening. There'll be lots of shadow and less daylight. The mice will have slowed a bit by then. We'll catch them off guard. Scrag, see this lot. Keep still and quiet, will you? Scrag saluted smartly and offered a helpful comment. This branch I'm sitting on, Chief, I've just been testing it. It feels good and strong. Maybe we should mount the plank from here to the wall. It'll reach easily enough. I know it's a bit of an uphill climb, but it shouldn't be too difficult. I don't fancy those branches higher up. They're too thin. Clooney climbed across and sat next to Scrag. He spoke in a whisper. Good thinking, Weasel. Yes, this branch will do fine. Stick by me, Scrag. You're a useful soldier. With some of the blockheads I've got around me, I could be on the lookout for a new captain soon. You know what that means? Extra loot, a bigger share of the plunder. Clooney always rewards initiative, Scrag. Play your cards right and you'll soon get promotion. Thanks, Chief. Don't worry, I won't let you down, Scrag murmured. On a lower branch, Chief Thief, who had been eavesdropping on the conversation, sneered inwardly. Yes, Chief, no Chief, 3 bags full, Chief. Who did that snotty weasel think he was? And as for Clooney promoting a weasel to captain over rats of his own kind, while Redtooth and Darkclaw and the others might have something to say about that. Upstart Weasel, he had only joined up a day or two ago. If he got half the chance, Cheese Thief would fix Scrag all right. Abbott Mortimer looked thankfully up at the sky. Evening had come. They had lasted out well. The rats had not breached the wall in any way. Most of the main fighting had gone into a lull. Clooney's horde was only making spasmodic sallies from the ditch now. Taking advantage of the interval, the defenders hauled up more rocks and rubble to the ramparts. Cornflower and her band of helpers were on the top of the walls. Keeping their heads low, they moved from post to post, serving each creature with a bowl of stew, some wild grapes, and a small loaf of honeyed nut bread. What a calm, efficient young mouse Cornflower is, the abbot remarked to Constance. The badger passed a bundle of arrows to Ambrose Spike for distribution as she replied, Aye, that she is, Father Abbot, but she looks worried. Matthias, do you think? Doubtless, said the abbot dryly. That young mouse is on my mind as well as hers and yours. Constance shook her large striped head. It's not like Matthias to go off like that. I've searched everywhere in my spare moments, but he's not in the abbey. Well, wherever he is, the abbot replied, I'm certain that he is helping our cause, so we'll just have to await his return and trust to Matthias' judgment and good sense. The two friends thankfully accepted food from Cornflower and her helpers. Both watched mystified as Winifred the otter and Four Mole hoisted and pulled a seesaw into view. It was a plaything made in the distant past for the use of infant woodlanders. It had lain near the strawberry patch for as long as anyone could remember. Baby animals played on it throughout the year. As a seesaw, it was in perfect working order. Winifred and Four Mole set it down on the parapet. Bent double, 2 moles staggered up, carrying between them an enormous rock. Four Mole indicated the opposite end of the seesaw. Purum there. That's a nice boulder, my beauties. When the boulder was in position, Winifred and Four Mole hugged each other tightly. With a nod, they jumped heavily onto the nearest seat. Whoosh! The big rock catapulted over the top of the parapet. Several seconds of silence followed. Then there was a crash, accompanied by screams of pain and shock from the rats packed into the ditch below. Winifred and Formal gravely shook paws. "Yer, oi reckon they pesky varmints got in eadache," chuckled Formal, as everybody on the ramparts ran to seek cover from the retaliatory missiles hurled by Cluny's horde. The battle had started again in earnest. Mouse archers sprang up and loosened their shafts down towards the ditch. Otter sling throwers whipped hard pebbles off with fierce rapidity. Long rat javelins flew upwards, causing death and injury in the ranks of the defenders. But now there was a new hazard. Some inventive rat had devised a fearsome weapon. Chunks of iron grave railings from the churchyard strung to lengths of cord. The rats would swing the cord round and round, gaining momentum until, judging the right direction, they loosened the cord. The missiles sped upwards 2 or 3 times higher than the wall. Almost out of sight, then they would plummet downwards, whistling viciously to burst on the ramparts. Any defender struck by a missile was either instantly killed or horribly maimed. Even if the iron missed its target, the stones and shattered metal fragments ricocheted about dangerously. Realizing the danger of this new device, Constance ordered all but a chosen few to leave the wall for the safety of the abbey grounds. However, the strung iron bits soon proved to be a two-edged weapon. Many that were released wrongly came hurtling back down into the ditch, sometimes slaying the very creatures that had hurled them. Even Redtooth and Cluny's army, guarding the standard in the meadow, had to make an undignified scurry to avoid being hit, but he could see the demoralizing effect the missiles were having on the defenders, so he ordered the throwers to continue. Constance bravely stood her ground on the parapet, as did her small band of picked fighters. Whenever one of the missiles landed intact on the rubble pile, she would seize it, standing in full view as she whirled the corded iron round and round, releasing it in a blur of speed. Constance was a far more powerful and accurate thrower than any rat. The attackers barred angry fangs at her from the cover of the ditch. Of all the Redwall defenders, the big badger was the one they most hated and feared. Seated in the branches of the elm tree at the north wall of the abbey, Cluny watched the shadows lengthen. To the west, the sky was crimson with sunset. Soon he would raise the plank to the parapet, then let them beware. No tin pot ordered of mice was going to stand against the might of Cluny the Scourge. Methuselah, the gatehouse keeper, stood facing the damaged tapestry in the great hall of Redwall. Being too old for active battle service, he reasoned that the best way he could serve his order was by putting his fertile brain to work. Somewhere there had to be at least a clue, a single lead that might tell him where the resting place of Martin the Warrior could be found, or where he could regain possession of the ancient sword for his abbey. But where? Every now and then over the years, Methuselah had searched through Redwall for Martin and his sword. Now he stepped up in his questing activities, alas with no success. Vital clues and answers still eluded him. What he needed was a younger, fresher mind to assist him. What a pity that Matthias could not be found. Now there was a young mouse with a head on his shoulders. Long years and much mental strain had taken their toll on the ancient mouse. Wearily he swayed on his feet, and putting out a paw to steady himself, he touched the wall with the exact patch of stone over which Martin's likeness had once hung. Methuselah gave a sigh of satisfaction and allowed a small smile to creep across his features. His search had not been in vain. Beneath his paw there was writing carved into the dust-covered wall. All right. So we're finally on the quest, which is the second book. So let's say we're at 300. Let's see. There's 351 pages, and we just finished 108, so we finally reached 108, which is nice. So let me see if I can find that. Did I? Oh, I'm sitting on it. But yeah. So we'll come back to book 2 hopefully soon. I'm sorry, I know it took so long, but we're back. So far I enjoyed the book. Hopefully you do as well. It's not super relaxing, but it does have a lot of words that I feel are pretty relaxing to say. But the smelly good books. But anyway, if you don't want to wait for me to keep reading it, you probably go to your local library and find it. But if you just want to listen to somebody else read it, then hopefully I will actually finish this for you. But yeah, hopefully I'll be back soon and can get that started up again on book 2. Have a good night.